Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto can use other people's memories. Sometimes a technique can lead to new discoveries, new paths. A chance discovery lets Naruto learn that which he was never taught, using the memories of others to aid his progress. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 41, The Finals continue. That was certainly an interesting match. The Kazekage noted as he settled back into his chair. It would seem that you have a potential second Tsunade there. Perhaps. Hiruzen smiled, then he paused. I see your daughter has a flair for the dramatic. Genma looked up as a shadow briefly blocked out the sun. His gaze locked onto the giant fan on which Temari was perched, then the Suna Kunoichi rolled off it, closing the fan in the same instant as she dropped 10 feet to the ground. A few seconds later, her adversary appeared from the stairwell and calmly strode across the arena, bells chiming on her belt, before coming to a stop in front of Genma. So, you both know the rules. Genma stated, earning a pair of nods. Good. Temari of Suna vs Chuchikin of Oto, begin. Both shinobi remained motionless for a moment, then Temari snapped her hands into a seal. Kai. The pulse of chakra caused the Oto Kunoichi to ripple out of existence and revealed her trying to sneak to the fallen trees. There you are. Temari growled, swinging her fan to send a blast of cutting wind at Kin, who responded by diving over one of the fallen trunks, allowing it to take the brunt of the attack. Splinters briefly filled the air and Temari took advantage of the pause to leap into the air, buoyed on her fan by a rising column of air. Can she attack without her fan? Hiruzen asked curiously. Yes, but her strongest attacks are her wind techniques. The Kazekage admitted. She has concentrated on using her fan, so her other skills may be slightly rusty. That sort of specialization may be good as part of a team, but on solo missions, it'll be a notable disadvantage. Hiruzen mused as he leaned back into his seat. Of course, it would seem like the Oto girl is also a single-trick kunoichi with her reliance on genjutsu. The Kazekage switched slightly, but didn't reply. Where are you? Temei whispered, scanning the floor of the arena for any sign of her target, then her reflexes screamed at her. As she flung herself into a diving roll, a barrage of discolored senbon sliced through the space that she had been occupying. Got you. Temari snarled, swinging her fan in a complex spiral as she fell through the air. 4 blasts of wind slammed into the tangle of logs that the senbon had been launched from, while a 5th slowed her descent so that she landed lightly, ready to launch another attack. Now I've got, what the hell? Kin squirmed out from underneath the half-shattered trunk, dragging her first prize with her. Propping it on the trunk, she squinted at her target, then triggered the kunai launcher that had been abandoned in the first match, sending a score of kunai screaming towards the fan using bitch. As the blonde bimbo used her fan to deflect the kunai, Kin pulled the second launcher out and triggered it before using the carry strap of the final one to sling it over her back. Temari used a blast of wind to send the first barrage skittering away, then to deflect the second. How? How had that arrogant little sound bitch managed to launch? Launch. Launch. The launchers. The launchers that the Uchiha had used. They must have pre-arranged for him to leave some of them there. That traitorous bitch. Sound must have allied with Konoha in order to take down Suna, and only she knew about it. They probably had a way to take down Gaara as well. Temari felt a trickle of cold sweat going down her spine. She needed to end this quickly so that she could tell Gaara that his mission had changed. Futon, Okame Tachi no Jutsu. Kin dived into a shallow recess as the air above her seemed to shatter, along with most of the logs that had been sheltering her. Pulling out a small storage scroll, she unsealed a small bag and swung it round, scattering the contents around her before hunkering down, hoping that her adversary didn't choose to simply repeat the attack until all of her cover was blown away. Temari smirked as she saw her target lying almost motionless in a small dip in the ground. Folding her fan so that she could use it as a club, she crept towards the traitorous genin, stepping lightly so that she wouldn't. Ow! Temari yelped as something sharp poked through her sandal, cutting into her foot. The pain caused her to fall over and she found herself looking at a caltrop, one with the tips a different color to the metal used to make it, Realization dawned even as the world faded, and her last act was to move her fingers into a sign used only by Suna. The hell? Baka muttered, lowering his telescope. Did she mean to do that? Do what? Kankuro asked. That sign as she collapsed. Baka mused. What did she discover that made her use that sign? What sign? Winner, Chuchi-kin. Genma announced as he carefully picked his way past the scattered caltrops to pick up the Sunaku no Ichi. Managing to collect the fallen contestant without scratching himself on the poisoned points, he retraced his steps to where the medic nins were waiting. I used a fast-acting knockout drug. Kin supplied as she stepped up beside him. She'll be awake in a few hours, but weak for a few days. The lead Irionin nodded in thanks as one of his assistants gently pulled the caltrop from Tamari's foot. Stay here. I'm going to check on her, see if she can be revived long enough to tell me what she discovered. Certainly an interesting match. Hiruzen smiled as he turned his attention to the next pair of contestants. It was, those two almost look like Kunoichi. The Kazekage chuckled. Neji gave his adversary a glare from the corner of his eye. He was proud of his skin and hair, but Haku's skin was even smoother than his own, while his hair was both longer and more luxuriant. In fact, if not for his Byakugan, Neji might have mistaken Haku for a girl. How could any boy be that pretty? It just wasn't right. Haku glanced at the fuming Hyuga. He didn't know why the boy was so angry, but he put it out of his mind as the two of them came to a stop in front of the proctor. Hyuga Neji of Konoha, Yuki Haku of Mizu, are you both ready to fight? Both shinobi nodded. Then, begin. Remembering his research on the Gyukin and its weaknesses, Haku dashed away from his opponent in order to avoid the chakra-infused strikes that he had been about to launch. Revive her. But sir, the Irionin protested, if we do, it'll increase the amount of time needed for the poison to fully clear her system. She'll be unable to resume her shinobi career for a fortnight rather than 3. I said, revive her. Baka growled and the Mednin seemed to slump. All right, but first, sign here to say that I warned you. Baka scrawled his name on the proffered sheet, then watched as the Irionin used a healing jutsu on Tamari's head, causing her to groan and stir. Leave. The Irionin scampered out of the door, closing it behind him, and Baka turned back to look at his student. Baki-sensei. Tamari. Baka said quietly. Report. Another underground water cache exploded upwards, the spray turning into a barrage of ice senbon that slashed at Neji, who responded by repeating the move that had caused his cousins to gasp in shock and his uncle to smile proudly. Hakuso Kaiden. Once again, the ice senbon shattered against the whirling chakra shield, their broken fragments forming a shallow moat around the Hyuga prodigy. That is the third time you have tried and the third time you have failed. Neji stated. You cannot win with that technique. Indeed I cannot. Haku admitted as he started making a series of hand seals. But, it means that at last, I can perform the technique that will grant me victory. Makyo Hayasho. The water around Neji bulged and rose upwards, solidifying into a dome of ice mirrors, and Haku stepped up to the dome, then stepped into one of the mirrors, his image appearing on all of them. Your Kaiden is not strong enough to break my mirrors. Haku said, his voice seeming to come from all 21 mirrors at once. Now, I am afraid that it is time to end this. Neji spun round, his hands covered in chakra as he fought to deflect the senbon slashing at him from all directions, but even the genius prodigy of the Hyuga clan was outmatched by the sheer speed of the attacks, and within minutes, he dropped to his knees, senbon sprouting from almost every part of his body. I yield. He managed to croak, and the mirrors promptly melted into falling rain as Haku re-emerged. Winner, Yuki Haku. Genma announced. Well done, Haku. Zabuza said so quietly that even Kojiro and Suijutsu, who were flanking him, didn't hear. I'm proud of you. What happened? Baki asked as he sat down beside Kankuro. The mist dude used a really weird ice technique to win. Kanuro replied. What did Sis say? You remember how I learned the basics of puppeting in order to help you? Baki asked, and Kankuro nodded. Good. You need to get to Gaara before he reaches the arena floor, but leave Crow with me to hide your absence. I have a message for your brother. Give this to him. Kankuro nodded as he accepted the folded sheet of paper and then stealthily unsealed his second puppet from the scroll, making sure that nothing showed above seat level. "What about Dad? I'll inform him when he looks across." Baka growled. "Now, switch." Kankuro kawaramied with Crow, then crept away, leaving the genjutsu-disguised puppet sat next to Baka. The Mednin vanished through the archway leading to the medical bay and Genma turned his attention to the final pair of combatants. Aburame Shino was the first to emerge from the archway, followed a few seconds later by Gaara. "Fuck." Kankuro cursed as he saw his brother step out onto the arena floor barely 2 meters away. "Damn it. Too slow." Baka waited for the Kazekage to look at him before his hands moved in a set of movements known only to the Kazekage and those appointed into the secret Suna no Mi organization. To his shock, the Kazekage responded with the signal for stay on plan, but using the normal Suna sign language. "Oh fuck." He breathed. "That's not Raza. I didn't make it in time." Kankuro said quietly, having switched with his puppet while Baka was distracted. "Then I have a new mission for you." Baka growled. Under his mask, Orochimaru frowned. He didn't recognize a single sequence that Baka had used, but his stay-on-plan signal seemed to have calmed him. "It looks like your youngest is going to show us his power," Hiruzen said, and Orochimaru's frown deepened. The Hokage knew something, but he couldn't quite work out what. "Aburame Shino of Konoha, Gaara of the desert, Shinobi of Suna, are you both ready?" Genma asked. "I am prepared." Shino droned. "I will prove my existence." Gaara growled, earning a quirked eyebrow from Genma. "Then the final match of the first round will begin." A swarm of bugs erupted from Shino's coat and surrounded Gaara. "Is that it?" Gaara sneered, then he started to choke, spitting as he tried to expel the bugs that had flown into his mouth. "Your sand armor covers your skin, but every armor has a weak point," Shino stated calmly. "I wonder if your eyes are as vulnerable." "You'll never learn." Gaara howled, the cork of the gourd he wore popping off as a torrent of sand flowed out, swatting away the bugs before rearing up and crashing down over Shino, reducing him to a sand-covered lump on the ground. "Well, that was fast." The Kazekage smirked. Chapter 42, A Genin's Bravery. "Your sand armor covers your skin, but every armor has a weak point," Shino stated calmly. "I wonder if your eyes are as vulnerable." "You'll never learn." Gaara howled, the cork of the gourd he wore popping off as a torrent of sand flowed out, swatting away the bugs before rearing up and crashing down over Shino, reducing him to a sand-covered lump on the ground. "You missed," Shino said as he stepped out from behind one of the tangles of branches near the edge of the arena and Gaara's sand retracted, revealing a crushed and splintered log where Shino had been standing. "I believe that it is now my turn." A rumbling noise marked slabs of stone rising up to seal off all the doors at ground level, then a dozen scrolls unrolled downwards from where they had been concealed under the lip of the wall, showing large fuinjutsu patterns that almost immediately revealed what their purpose was. Each scroll almost vanished behind a wall of spray as a veritable waterfall poured out, covering the entire arena floor in under a minute and continuing to disgorge their loads. Shino stood calmly on a small coracle that he had unsealed, letting it bob on the choppy water as he watched Gaara. But Aburame hate the water." Kiba spluttered. "They have, like, super drowning skills." "Obviously not." Tsunade mused. "Interesting. Troublesome." Shikamaru sighed. "I wonder when he and his clan set that up." Gaara took a jagged breath as another portion of his frantically created sand pillar became waterlogged and peeled off, vanishing into the now 5-foot-deep lake that had once been a solid arena. His gourd cracked and shattered into sand as he fought to stabilize his precarious platform. "Water washes away sand," Shino noted as the scrolls finally exhausted their stored water. "How long can you hold yourself out of the water, Gaara of the desert? Can you hold yourself above the water?" Gaara started looking around in panic as the sand pillar reduced in size once again, then he screamed as the pillar sheared under him, sending him toppling into the water. An instant later, he resurfaced, standing in the neck-deep water, his hair plastered against his skull and tiny driblets of mud falling off his skin. "Your sand is gone," Shino stated. My clan provided me with the report of a Konoha shinobi who managed to observe you on one of your missions. You rely totally on your sand for attack and defense. Without it, even a civilian would have no trouble defeating you. Nuh! Gaara screamed, and as if in response to his yell, white feathers began to fall from the sky. The first clue that Naruto had that things were going wrong were when he started to feel sleepy, only to be jolted awake by a chakra burst from Asuma. What's going on? Genjutsu, and a big one. Asuma growled as he pulled out his knives, fitting his fingers through the holes in the hilts with the ease of long practice. The Kazekage and his guards grabbed Pops. We need to move. Naruto leaped after Asuma, glancing round as he did so, then he found himself facing a huge, transparent purple barrier. Shit! Asuma growled. We can't get in and with the genjutsu across the village. I got it. Naruto interrupted, gathering chakra like Kurenai had showed him months ago, months that seemed almost like years. As the multi-armed man in the corner of the barrier closest to them sneered, Naruto gathered as much chakra as he could hold, then he released it in a giant burst. Kai! The wave of chakra seemed almost solid as it raced across the stadium and out into Konoha proper, shocking everyone awake. For an instant, the purple chakra cube seemed to waver, then it re-solidified. That's Orochimaru in there? Came a voice, and Naruto glanced sideways to see the white-coated Umbu Okamai standing beside him. Naruto turned to Asuma, only to find him gone and the sound of fighting increasing below. Movement inside the cube caught his eye, and he watched as 3 coffins erupted out of the ground, only for one of them to slowly sink back down. The other 2 opened, and Nico gasped. The Shodai and the Nidaime. Orochimaru summoned them from the grave to fight for him. Hell, no! Naruto shouted, and suddenly he was standing by Hiruzen's side. Naruto? Hiruzen asked in surprise. What are you doing? No. How did you get in here? I snuck a tag into your head a few weeks ago. Naruto shrugged. So, you need reinforcements, Op Force style. Orochimaru paused, his hands resting against the back of the resurrected Hokage's skulls. What are you doing, and how did you get in here? This technique even covers attacks from below. Kaimon. Kyumen. Siamen. Naruto shouted, chakra almost crackling around him as Hiruzen placed one hand on his shoulder, then rested his staff on Naruto's other shoulder. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Smoke engulfed the rooftop, before dissipating to reveal a sight that had Orochimaru's stomach dropping. The intruding genin stood with Hiruzen behind him, flanked by almost 20 clones of his old sensei, each holding a copy of the diamond staff. Oh! Crap! Orochimaru managed. Naruto, I need you out there, helping to defeat those attacking Konoha. One of the Hiruzens said, and Naruto vanished in a golden flash. Well, are you prepared to face your teachers, young snake? Hashirama, Tobirama, attack! Orochimaru shouted, panic evident in his voice, and the horde of Hiruzens lunged forwards, swinging their summoned staffs. Naruto appeared on the roof of the Hokage Tower and glanced round, checking to see where the greatest concentration of fighting was. Before he could act, his attention was arrested by a trio of summons in the surrounding forest. Naruto shunshined to the outer wall, and his hands flashed through 5 seals as he channeled as much chakra as he could. Kuchi Yase no Jutsu. A massive cloud of smoke formed and resolved into 3 giant toads who glanced round, spotting the summoned snakes approaching the walls of Konoha almost instantly. Well, looks like I'll get that snakeskin wallet after all. Gamabunta rumbled, one paw stroking the handle of the sword thrust through his belt. Yeah, but until I recover from using the gates, I can't help by spamming my clones. Naruto complained. Damn it. I hate not being able to do things. Gamahiro, take the snake on the left. Gamabunta ordered, and the green toad reached up to unsheath the 2 katanas on its back. Gamaken, you have the one on the right. The 3-headed one is mine. Understood, Gamabunta Dano. The sword-bearing toad responded. I'll do my best, but I am rather clumsy. Go. Naruto held on as tightly as he could as Gamabunta accelerated past the 3-headed snake, his blade almost hissing as it sliced off one of the snake's heads. It's coming after us. Then that means it isn't smashing down the walls. Gamabunta countered as he spun with a lightness that belied his size. As he settled, the ground shook and Naruto glanced across to see Gamaken, moving with incredible grace, slamming his Sajumata down again, crushing the head of the snake he was fighting and causing it to dispel. Gamaken's finished his one off. So has Gamahiro. Gamabunta smirked and the now two-headed snake paused, glancing at where its brethren had been and the two toads leaping towards its position, weapons glinting in the sunlight. Boys, help me pin this one down so that we can ask a few questions. Naruto had never seen a snake swallow nervously before, but the one before him did so before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. What just happened? The coward dispelled itself. Gamabunta grumbled, using the flat of his blade to send a group of roof-hopping Oto shinobi screaming into the air. Looks like that girl over there could use some backup. What? Where? Hinata. Hinata stood in front of the entrance to the shelter where the academy students had been escorted, 3 corpses that had been Oto shinobi lying in front of her. It's only one girl. An Oto Jonin shouted as he rallied his team and Hinata dropped into a modified Gyuken stance. You shall not pass. She declared, trying not to let her fear slow her down. Yeah, you and what army? The Jonin sneered just as a flash of light marked Naruto's appearance. Even as he appeared, he lunged forwards, the Rasengan forming in his hand and plowing straight through the Jonin's chest. That, he panted, would be me. The surviving half-dozen Oto shinobi exchanged glances, then vanished. Naruto, we need clones. Hinata commanded and Naruto winced. I'm still using the gates, mine will dispel at once. But mine won't and we need more eyes. Hinata stated. Naruto nodded and pulled her into a hug. Taijutsu Kage Bunshin. 24 new Hinatas appeared in a cloud of denser than normal chakra smoke and promptly took to the rooftops, their Byakugans active as they sought out the enemy shinobi still fighting. What's happening on the roof over there? Hinata asked, pointing to the distant purple cube. My Byakugan can't penetrate it. Jiji's laying the smack down on Orochimaru. Naruto grinned. I used the gates to give him almost a dozen clones to help him. Hinata made several hand signals and 3 of her clones dropped down around them, taking up guard positions. Shut those gates and let me heal you so you can start making more clones. Hinata commanded. How's that? Hinata asked, removing her green glowing hands from Naruto's torso. You should be healed enough now. Naruto closed his eyes in concentration and several dozen clones popped into existence around him before leaping off to join the Hinata clones and harrying the retreating Oto shinobi. Thanks, Hime-sama. Naruto smiled. It looks like things are calming down now. Thanks, Gamabunta-san, but I think it's almost over. It was a brief fight, but it wasn't a bad fight. Gamabunta smiled. Call us again when you need us. As he vanished, a white-haired figure landed beside him, a bloody kunai held in his hand. Nice one, Gaki. Jiraiya grinned. Looks like things are almost done, Orochimaru lost. Hold this point until further notice. You got it, Pervy Sage. Naruto grinned as Jiraiya took to the rooftops, searching for any enemy still trying to harm Konoha, then he grabbed at his head and staggered slightly. Whoa, that's a lot of new techniques. Hinata turned slightly as she focused on the rooftop where the chakra barrier had been. There's 7 Hokages. No, 6, 4, 2, just 1. Yeah, and I'm getting the headache to prove it. Naruto grumbled. Some of those techniques he used, he didn't even pause to think about how to do them, he just did them as if they were as reflexive as catching a kunai. One of his nicknames is the Professor. Hinata shrugged. He wouldn't have earned that title if he didn't know lots of ninjutsu. And how to use them. Naruto added. You alright? Hinata nodded, then she flung herself into Naruto's arms, tears cascading down her cheeks. Hinata. I killed them. Hinata sobbed and Naruto looked at the trio of corpses, then concentrated on hugging Hinata. Hinata. A voice called and Kurenai landed next to them, her eyes taking in the situation almost instantly. Oh dear, first kill. I'd hoped to delay it until she was at least chunin. I've got this. Naruto let Hinata-sensei enfold her in a reassuring hug as Hinata sobbed into her shoulder. Uzumaki-san. A voice said and Naruto turned to see an Umbu standing nearby. The Hokage wants to see you. Go. Kurenai said, looking up briefly from her crying student. I'll help Hinata through this, it's something that all shinobi go through at some point. I still remember my first kill. Naruto looked at Kurenai for a long moment, then nodded and vanished in a flash of golden light. Kurenai stared in shock at the place that he had been. He's learned the true Hiraishin. He's mastered his father's jutsu. Chapter 43, Perspectives of Battle. Kin used a dispel to counter the effects of the genjutsu being placed on the entire stadium and grinned as she saw the other genin start to sag. Heh, guess I'll be winning all the rest of the matches. She sneered as she pulled out a handful of poisoned senbon, then she was sent staggering by a wave of chakra that wiped out the genjutsu as if it had never been there in the first place. The fuck was that? She gasped, then she felt her wrist being grabbed by the pink-haired Kunoichi. Poisoned senbon? And just what were you planning on doing with those? Kin gulped as she met the furious green eyes. I can explain. Attack. The Jonin in charge of the Oto assault groups shouted into his radio and the task forces secretly emplaced within Konoha burst out of their hiding places to begin wreaking havoc throughout the unsuspecting city. As the specially trained chunin used the summoning circles to call forth 3 of the larger summon snakes to break down the wall surrounding Konoha to open it up for the second wave of attacks, the Jonin was shocked to feel a kunai plunging into his upper back, severing his spine. Why? He croaked and the Suna shinobi who had inflicted the mortal wound glared down at him. Did you really think we didn't know about the betrayal you planned? The Otonin died in confusion, failing to understand what the Sunanin was talking about. Activating her Byakugan, Hinata caught sight of 3 Oto shinobi descending on a group of children outside the arena. Without hesitation, she used Shunshin to reach the top of the outer wall, then another to land in the middle of the attaching shinobi, striking them down with chakra-laced strikes. Thanks, Hinata. The man herding the children said gratefully and Hinata blinked as she realized that it was Iruka. Can you help me get them to safety? Hinata nodded. Ugh. Kin managed as she was backhanded into the wall by Sakura, then pinned into place by a barrage of senbon through her clothing, a barrage launched by Haku. But, you're not from Konoha. Haku shrugged. Kiri seeks an alliance with Konoha. What better way to prove our good intentions than by helping defend Konoha against those who wish to attack? Now, if you will pardon me. Haku dived off the platform and landed atop the water in the arena. A quick move caused a wave of water to engulf the raging Gaara, a wave that promptly froze, leaving only his head free. And that should hold him for now. Haku stated, ignoring the screaming of the redhead, then from outside the arena, a new voice sounded. Kuchi Yasei no Jutsu. The shapes of several giant toads loomed up against the skyline. Well. The largest of them mused as he looked at the 3 giant snakes beginning to smash their way through the village's walls. Looks like I'll get that snakeskin wallet after all. The fuck? Kin gasped. Hey, you forgetting something? Sakura asked and Kin looked back, just in time to see Sakura's fist heading towards her. OCR. The first 2 Oto shinobi to appear didn't even have time to finish unsheathing their weapons before their heads were separated from their bodies. Kojuro, circle left. Suijutsu, to the right. Zabuza roared as he used his sword to block an attack by an Oto Jonin who had seen what had happened to his teammates. And Suijutsu, no tags. Too much chance of civilian casualties. But they're not our civilians. Suijutsu protested, earning a glare from his sensei. Okay, fine. No tags, damn it. Zabuza spun his sword, taking off the hand of the shinobi trying to attack him, then frowned at Suijutsu. Why the hell are you still standing here? Go. Hi, sensei. Suijutsu yelped as he dashed off. Still got it. Zabuza smirked as he negligently decapitated the screaming Otonin. Bakipalmada kunai as he glanced round, then he rolled away from an Oto shinobi who landed almost exactly where he had been standing. The newcomer turned, brandishing a large sword and Baki's hand twitched, sending the kunai plunging into his eye and killing him. As the attacker collapsed, Baki rolled to his feet, a second kunai seeming to materialize in his hand. Damn it! He snarled. I hope to hell my message got through. This isn't good. Harano Kaizashi mused as he almost negligently knifed an attacking shinobi while he and his wife covered one of the exits that the panicked civilians were using. Clang. Kaizashi looked round at Mabuki, who had a dented frying pan in her hand and a concussed shinobi at her feet. Dear, he commented, isn't that the pan that you inherited from your mother? So? Mabuki asked as she blocked a shuriken with the aforementioned utensil. You know that she never approved of me choosing to not become a shinobi. You would have made an excellent one. Kaizashi pointed out and Mabuki growled. You know that I don't clang, like violence. Yes dear. Kaizashi smirked. Oh, look, our daughter just punched someone through a wall. Clang wham crash. Kaizashi looked at the new hole and the pair of sandals sticking out from the pile of rubble, then at his wife, who was still holding her, even more dented than before, frying pan. Ah, it's that time of the month, is it? And just what do you mean by that? Nothing, dear. Yosh. I have defeated 35 of these most unyouthful Oto shinobi. Guy exulted as he spun through a complex series of kicks and strikes that ended with his fist protruding from the back of another Otonin. Make that 36. How many have you defeated, my eternal rival? Did you say something? Kakashi asked as he stamped down hard, sending a rock spike lunging upwards and through the chest of one of the attackers. I do believe that this makes 39 kills. And this makes us even. Guy called as a spinning kick caved in the chest of another assailant. Really? Kakashi asked, cutting off a lightning technique. You're up to 43 as well. Curse your hip and too cool attitude, Kakashi. Did you say something? Danzo stared in confusion at his root operative. Did you just say that Suna has turned against Oto? What is going on up there? Orochimaru didn't even have the breath to spare cursing as he frantically rolled and dodged the half-dozen staffs wielded by the clones of his former teacher, creating and switching with mud clones almost reflexively as his survival instincts screamed at him almost continuously. In the corners of the far too small enclosure, his two resurrected minions were losing ground against the other clones and he caught a glimpse of Hashirama falling, his head destroyed by the impact of two staffs, thus ending his resurrection. Orochimaru avoided a vertical strike by switching with another clone, then he rolled to avoid a strike that would have decapitated him only to find himself trapped in a horizontal cylinder of 6 enlarged staffs, a cylinder whose ends had been blocked by the ends of 2 more staffs and whose nature as transformed summons prevented him from kawaramiing to safety. Oh, bloody. Orochimaru started to sigh before the end caps of the staffs slammed inwards. What the hell is going on? Baki shouted in frustration as he watched Kakashi shove a lightning-coated hand through the spine of an Oto ninja. Wasn't this an attempt to wipe out Suna? Nope, it's an attack on Konoha. Kakashi replied as the corpse slumped to the ground. Thanks for killing that Otonin earlier, he could have caused quite a bit of trouble had he reached the civilians. Baki nodded, his mind frantically churning as he fought to understand the situation. The Kazekage was obviously dead with Orochimaru replacing him, but Konoha was strong enough that it could probably have fought off Suna and Oto, had he not sent orders to his men to ambush the second wave of Oto shinobi before retreating, thus denying Konoha the excuse it would need to flatten Suna. Yet it would seem that Konoha hadn't actually known about the invasion until it started, which meant... Camus above, this is so fucking screwed up. He grumbled. Hiruzen didn't even twitch as blood started seeping out between the lower staffs forming the cylinder. Instead, he motioned for the 2 clones at the ends to repeat the attack. With Orochimaru, you had to make certain. The snake had escaped too many times for any other course of action. Heh, just a couple of old people. The Jonin leading the squad of 6 sneered as he saw the duo standing in front of the Hokage Tower. Kill them. Mito Kadahomura adjusted his glasses slightly, then pulled at the scroll he was wearing over his chest. The scroll unrolled, revealing lines of Fuinjutsu as beside him, Yututane Koharu shifted into a defensive stance, raising her right arm to reveal that it was encased in a metal gauntlet. Screw this, we need to get out of here. The Jonin half turned to glare at the chunin who had spoken. What the hell are you talking about, traitor? Hey, just look at them. The chunin protested. They're old shinobi who are ready to fight. No way they'd be standing like that if they didn't have a ton of experience to draw on, and you remember that old saying? Experience and trickery will defeat youth and skill. We need to fall back. You might want to listen to the young man. Koharu offered, and the jonin shook his head as he unsheathed his sword. Kill them, then burn the tower to the ground. Well, he tried to warn you. Homura shrugged, his hands moving to the storage seals on his scroll. Time to see if my old skills are still sharp enough. The jonin lunged, only to come to a sudden stop as Koharu grabbed his blade, locking it with her metal-encased fingers. My turn, young boy. She said with an icy smile. Oh shit. The chakra barrier vanished as the quartet holding it up reacted to the loss of their leader and fought to escape. All around Konoha, the Oto shinobi noted the change in circumstances. The most intelligent of them tried to retreat while those who only sought combat pressed their attack, uncaring that they were surrounded and outnumbered. Only a small fraction of those trying to escape succeeded. None of those who continued to attack lasted more than a few minutes. Well, it looks like it's all done. Hiruzen mused as he stood on the ridgeline of the stadium's roof. If this is how it's normally like, I need to visit more often. Mei will be sorry she had to re-recruit that Jinchuriki rather than attend. Zabuza said as he stood beside the Hokage, his sword covered in blood that was slowly being absorbed into the blade. It'll be interesting to find out just what Orochimaru intended to happen. Hiruzen continued, glancing at the scroll in his hand, the scroll that held the mangled remains of the snake Sunin. While all battles are somewhat chaotic by their very nature, this one was the wrong sort of chaos. Yeah. Zabuza agreed. Those Oto idiots were acting as if they had more backup than they actually did, and most of the Suna shinobi who popped up at the start seemed to have vanished. Strange. Hiruzen mused. It was rather weird. Zabuza agreed, then he turned to face the older man. So, you given thought as to Terumi's request for an alliance? I have, and I think that it is a good idea. Hiruzen said, then he turned to face an Umbu who had appeared behind him, kneeling as he awaited orders. I need Uzumaki Naruto here. Hi, Hokage Dano. The Umbu replied before he vanished, and Zabuza gave Hiruzen a curious glance. I happen to know that there's a certain trophy in the Mizukage's office. Hiruzen smirked. Would you care to take back my acceptance of the treaty? Sure. Zabuza shrugged. But I'll take my team with me, if you don't mind. That shouldn't be a problem. Hiruzen replied as Naruto appeared before them. Ah, Naruto, just the person I wanted. Are you able to make clones again? 3 clones appeared in a puff of smoke, and Zabuza raised one non-existent brow. No hand seals, not bad, kid. Gaara, stand down. Baka commanded, and the red-haired genin growled at him. I mean it, Gaara. Stand down. One Konoha genin took you down with ease, and Konoha has dozens of Sutin users. The Jinchuriki of the Ichiba finally stopped snarling even as the ice holding him immobile, and separated from his sand, melted with unnatural speed. Can someone please get rid of all this water? Baki half yelled, and a moment later, the water started vanishing into a series of grates set around the base of the arena walls. A cloaked man with an Umbu mask picked up a small, white snake that was wriggling its way to the walls surrounding Konoha. Holding it up, he looked at it for a moment before tucking it into a pocket and walking away, leaving no trace that he had ever been there. Chapter 44, A Genin's Recognition. Ah, Naruto. Hiruzen smiled as his favorite orphan entered the office. You remember Gaara? Naruto looked to the corner, where the red-haired boy was sat with a surprisingly calm expression on his face, in between a boy and a girl who both looked slightly freaked out. In front of them stood an older man with a veil covering half of his face. Sort of. Hey, Gaara. Uzumaki. Gaara nodded back. Thank you. For what? Naruto asked, only for a new voice to answer. When I first examined your seal after the Kyuubi's attack, I noted several interesting parts that I hadn't encountered before. Jiraiya said. When I examined Gaara's seal, I noticed that it was, sub-par is too generous. So I fixed it using some of your father's ideas. Gaara now has all his sand techniques, but the Ichibi can't escape unless he lets it. Naruto nodded. Just like the Kyuubi. That reminds me, I'm going to have to visit the Toads again soon. The Kyuubi wants to experience the world, and I think the great Toad sages may be able to help me adjust the Kage Bunshin so that the Kyuubi can create a small, temporary avatar for himself. As long as you keep enough control that you can dismiss his clone if he even thinks about trying anything, I don't see too many problems. Hiruzen mused, earning a nod of gratitude from Naruto and a shocked look from Jiraiya. Anyway. Hiruzen continued. During the abortive invasion, and it was meant to be one, but Jonin Baki reached a logical, albeit totally wrong conclusion and had his forces pull out after striking at the Oto forces. The half-veiled man nodded, a look of embarrassment on the visible portion of his face. Your actions proved that you are ready for promotion to chunin, especially since you managed to do your father's version of the Hiraishin. Naruto opened his mouth, then froze as he replayed the previous day's fight. I did. Can you still do it? Jiraiya asked and Naruto frowned in thought. Well, I think that The world blinked around him and Naruto found himself standing in his house. Yes. He shouted in celebration, startling the clone who was tidying up. At last. Gathering his chakra, he returned to the Hokage's office with a grin. Yes. He exulted. That's how it's done, all three techniques at once and syncing them up correctly to avoid the chakra surges. Interesting. Hiruzen mused. Perhaps you could try to teach my guard afterwards. I'm certain that you'll be teaching Hinata as well. I think it was learning the Rasengan that helped me make the final step. Naruto said thoughtfully. Controlling a spiraling sphere of chakra takes quite a bit of concentration. I'll have to practice to make sure I've got it down first, though. I'll mark it as a Hijutsu of the Uzumaki clan, albeit one shared with the Senju clan. Hiruzen offered. So, I called you here for several reasons. The first is that I'd like to have you take Baki and the Sand siblings back to Suna. Now they know that we have a full Hiraishin user and others learning, I feel certain that they won't be tempted to try and break the alliance between us. Baki nodded quickly. Next, here. Naruto accepted the chunin vest and grinned at it, then he paused. Ah crud, I'm going to have to adjust my wardrobe, aren't I? You are starting to outgrow that Haori, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Hiruzen shrugged. Finally, I have several messages that I want you to give out. Congratulations, Naruto. Hayashi said and Naruto blinked. You've already heard. I am a Hyuga. Hayashi said as if it explained everything, then his lips twitched in what may have been a brief smile. I have my sources. Ah, right. Naruto managed. Anyway, Hiruzen sent me to round up the genin for a meeting at 1:30 in the mission office, which he's repurposing for this. Parents can attend as well, if they wish. I will escort my daughter and nephew personally. Hayashi nodded. Thank you, Chunin Naruto. Still getting used to that. Naruto said with a slight smile. By the way, where is your vest? Or have you decided to simply not wear it? It's at Silken Leaf Fashions for adjustment. Naruto explained, rubbing the back of his head. I'm also getting a new Haori to go with it, it'll attach with small pop studs by the collar. I am certain that it will look good. Hayashi replied. It'll be ready by the meeting. Naruto shrugged. Will you be there? Yup. Naruto grinned. Once I've done all the missions. I've got a dozen message relays to the border outposts to do first, though. Then I shall not keep you. Hayashi said. Thank you for delivering the message. Naruto bowed and vanished in a flash of golden light. He truly does know his father's Hiraishin. Hayashi mused. Fascinating. Gotcha. Shikamaru growled as his shadow lashed out to freeze the demon in its tracks. Koji carefully deployed the carry basket in front of it and Shikamaru moved carefully in order to force the screeching monster from the darkest pits of hell into the wickerwork container. Tora, captured. Ino confirmed, peering through the metal grill flap at the hissing furball inside. I hate that thing. Shikamaru sighed. Hey, it's good practice for tracking and capture. Naruto pointed out and Shikamaru jolted in shock. Damn it, Naruto. Stop doing that to me. Shikamaru panted as he recovered. Sorry. Naruto grinned unrepentantly. There's a meeting for the rookies at 2:30 regarding what happened during the finals, mission office. I've been sent to round everyone up for it. Shikamaru squinted at him suspiciously. Is this you or a clone? You got me, I'm a clone. The Kage Bunshin shrugged. Boss went to Hinata. Shikamaru interrupted. Okay. We'll pass word to Asuma-sensei and we'll be there. The clone dispelled and Shikamaru sighed. Should we get going? Koji asked. Yep. Let's go. I wonder how troublesome it'll be. A meeting. Guy mused. Yosh. Perhaps we shall see one of my precious students being promoted, as you have been. Wait. Tenten interjected, looking at Naruto. You've been promoted. Chunin Uzumaki, at your service. Naruto grinned. That reminds me, can your dad produce more of these? Tenten took the oddly shaped kunai and looked at it. It's got good balance, the extra points'll help in blocking swords and other blade weapons, it'll fly well once thrown, but the way the blade is weighted, it'll fly point first rather than be able to be thrown so it spins, no hilt wrapping, but it looks like there was something there and why the heck does it look so familiar? That is one of the Yondaime's tri-blade kunai. Guy mused. It lacks the tag that wrapped around the handle, but... Oh my word! Tenten gasped. You've got the one-person version of the Hiraishin working. Naruto nodded. I kinda stumbled across how to do it during the battle, it let me get to the old man and give him the boost he needed to destroy Orochimaru. I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to continue our training sessions. I may be a chunin now, but I still have a lot to learn regarding weapons. Very true. Guy agreed. Those who think they have nothing left to learn are those who die from their arrogance. Hiruzen looked at the crowd before him. At the back stood the 4 Jonin senseis as well as Hyuga Hayashi, while 12 genin, and 1 chunin who was resplendent in his new Haori-enhanced chunin vest, stood in front of them. To one side, Jiraiya lounged on the windowsill. Welcome. Hiruzen said, effortlessly grabbing everyone's attention. The last few days have been quite challenging and we are only just beginning to get to grips with what we have learned and what has happened. Jiraiya is particularly irritated in that his intelligence network failed to warn us that the attack was going to happen. Some of my agents are less reliable than I had thought. Jiraiya admitted. I'll get onto it after I've done that retrieval mission you want me to do. Good. Hiruzen said, then he turned his attention back to his audience. You are here because some of you proved yourselves worthy of promotion during the attack. The more observant amongst you will have noted that Uzumaki Naruto is already a chunin. Hiruzen paused as Kiba hooped and high-fived Naruto before realizing just what he'd interrupted and slinking to hide behind an obviously amused Shino. As I was saying, Naruto has been awarded the rank of chunin, but he is not the only one. Hiruzen continued. I have received reports from your Jonin senseis, as well as eyewitness reports from various shinobi who were present during the attack, and now, I shall inform you of the decisions that I have reached. Team 7, Uchiha Sasuke. You proved your tactical skills during the finals, planning ahead but being able to change your plans on the fly when appropriate. During the attack, you followed orders and defended the innocent until they could get into the shelters. Once that was done, you told a senior ninja what you had seen, giving them the information they needed to head off an assault that would have caused massive casualties. You have proven yourself worthy of promotion and your request to be considered for Umbu training has been granted. Congratulations, Chunin. Sasuke accepted the vest almost reverently, then stepped back as Tobio clapped him on his shoulder in congratulations. Teammate, Aburame Shino. Like Sasuke, you proved that you could plan ahead, setting up storage scrolls full of water and Fuinjutsu arrays for Doton techniques to use during your match against an adversary who, under any other circumstance, you would have been unable to hold your own against. In a very real sense, it was your actions which prevented Gaara from unleashing his Biju through his sand as the attackers had planned. During the attack, you joined with your clan to swarm several of the attackers, proving your teamwork credentials. You have proven yourself worthy of promotion. Congratulations, Chunin. Shino accepted the vest stoically. Team 9, Higurashi Tenten. Although you lost your fight, you demonstrated that you could counter most of the attacks used against you. During the invasion, you found high ground and provided long-range covering fire, which has been credited with saving the lives of at least 5 of the shinobi of Konoha. You have proven yourself worthy of promotion. Congratulations, chunin. Tenten slowly took the vest, a disbelieving grin on her face. As she returned to her team, Guy and Lee both caught her in a hug that lifted her off the ground before she was able to lever them off her. Team 10, although none of you made it to the finals, your choice of ensuring the well-being of your own over the mission has been noted and will go into your files. Although none of you are to be promoted this time, rest assured that in future tests, you will be at an advantage in the eyes of the judges. However, having 3 of you promoted out of your teams and 1 of you transferring to Mayumbu will require some rearrangement. I leave it to you to decide. Sakura gave Sasuke a pleading look. I have to do this. I have always planned on doing it. Sasuke said quietly. We can still be friends. I would suggest that you decide amongst yourselves what you wish to do. Hiruzen continued. All except Naruto, dismissed. Naruto, please stay, I have a mission for you. Naruto paused just long enough to give Hinata a quick kiss on her cheek, eliciting a surprised eep, before moving out of the way of the departing group. Okay, so what's the mission, sir? So formal. Hiruzen chuckled, then he nodded to Jiraiya. I'm sending Jiraiya to retrieve my 3rd student, Senju Tsunade, and bring her back here. With your recent grasping of your father's signature jutsu, I feel you would be perfect for this mission, as you would be able to return with her, quite literally, in a flash. Naruto nodded slowly, then he grinned. Hey, pervy sage, what do you plan on doing during the journey if I do go with you? Well, mainly checking your general knowledge and enhancing it, teaching you the art of reconnaissance, spycraft, diplomacy. I've talked to Kasuke-san about what he taught you and you've had a pretty firm base for me to build on. And I can save us some money as well. Naruto grinned, pulling out a tri-blade kunai and holding it for Jiraiya to take. The Toad Sage did so, looking at it curiously. I still need to get back to the Toads. Naruto explained. You set off and I can use that to join you once I'm done. In fact, when I do, we won't need to worry about hotels, I can just jump us back and forth once you find a good place to temporarily hide that as a beacon. Diam. Jiraiya breathed. Why the heck didn't I think of that? Chapter 45, A Chunin amongst the Toads. Welcome back, Naruto. Fukazaku said as the blonde human walked up to where he was sitting. It's good to be back. Naruto smiled, then he glanced round. Where's Shima? She's helping Gamabunta deal with something that came up regarding one of the other summon clans. Fukazaku said, pulling himself onto his feet. It isn't a big thing, but it does need dealing with. Now, is that a chunin vest? It is. Naruto grinned, stroking the zip of the vest that showed from under the edge of his haori. I was promoted yesterday. Congratulations. Fukazaku smiled as he started up the path to the grove. One step closer to your dream of becoming Hokage. Yeah, but still a long way to go. Naruto sighed. At the end of the invasion, I got loads of technique memories from the Hokage. I had to write them down before I forgot them, then check with him that I'd got them right and had permission to learn them. Ah yes, your memory skill that Jiraiya was complaining about. Fukazaku chuckled. You're still doing it. Mainly to enjoy time with Hinata. Naruto admitted. We're mainly using the clones to do housework together and stuff. I'm getting pretty good at pressing flowers. Oh, and I'm getting plenty of lessons on how to act in different types of situations. My old grin stupidly and shout greetings method wasn't a good one, in retrospect. With great power comes great responsibility. Fukazaku intoned, then he caught Naruto's quizzical expression. Arachnid clan saying. It means the more power you have, the more responsible you are for what you do with it and the outcomes that using it creates. That's deep. Naruto finally managed, then he glanced round. Gamamaru-san. Hello there. The eldest of the Toads smiled from his seat on one of the stone slabs. I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to have a talk with the child of my old friend. Was that Uncle Gamma? The Kyuubi asked and Naruto nodded slightly. It isn't, he was hoping to talk to you. Naruto sent back. Shall we begin? Gamamaru asked and Naruto scurried to the stone slab that had served as his seat the last time he had been in the clearing. Chuchikin looked up at the looming figure of Marino Ibiki and tried not to let her bladder empty itself as he simply looked at her. Her sense of vulnerability was increased by the fact that she was tied to a hospital bed, with a cast on her left arm and bandages holding her cracked ribs in place, with only a sheet, and a few bandages, protecting her modesty. Despite her attempt to show defiance, she flinched as Ibiki reached into his pocket. A few seconds later, his hand reappeared, but it was holding two items that Kin recognized instantly. Those are the Hitaites worn by your two teammates before Orochimaru sacrificed them to aid in his attempt to kill the Hokage. Ibiki rumbled and Kin felt her eyes start to tear up briefly before she drew on her anger. As if we were a proper team. She scoffed, then she shrank back as Ibiki raised an eyebrow. Indeed. Not that it matters anymore. Orochimaru is dead. Kin felt her heart stutter at the news. If he was dead, then Otogakure was effectively gone, meaning that she was an independent shinobi. No more beatings to drive out the weakness, no more fear of being the next test subject. No more private quarters with a seal-enhanced lockable door. No one who would watch her back during a mission. Damn. She whispered and Ibiki nodded. Most of your information is now useless to us. You cannot buy your freedom by informing on one who is dead. Kin felt herself graying out in panic and forced herself to pay attention. You have no Kekai Genkai to barter with, no treasures to use as bribes. What are you going to do with me? Kin whimpered and Ibiki stepped aside to reveal two people, a blonde male and a black-haired female. You have a choice. Ibiki said from behind Kin, where she couldn't see him. You can have your chakra sealed and be cast into prison, or you can have a loyalty genjutsu implanted in your subconscious and become a provisional Konoha shinobi, although you will be required to divulge all your techniques. At least you are giving me a choice. Kin sighed. I'll take the genjutsu. Then just relax. The blonde man said, reaching out to place one hand on her forehead as the woman began to make a long, complex series of hand seals. Will I still be me? Kin whispered and the man nodded. You will. All that will change will be your loyalty. You have my word. Kin nodded slightly, then she closed her eyes as the world began to spin away. Uncle Gamamaru. Hello, Kurama-kun. Gamamaru said, reaching between the bars to touzle Kurama's forehead fur. It's been so long. Kurama whispered. I've missed you, how's Tadpole? If Gamabunta hears you still call him that. Gamamaru chuckled while Naruto simply gaped in shock from behind him. He's doing well, he's become quite the leader. Kurama reached up and took Gamamaru's paw in his own. For a long moment, the giant fox and the slightly smaller toad simply stared silently at each other, then Kurama's gaze settled on Naruto. What's my jailer doing here? And why? Because it was necessary. Gamamaru replied calmly. Give me a moment. Naruto thought that he must have blinked or something since suddenly Gamamaru was holding two large pieces of parchment, a writing brush and a bottle of ink. Putting them down, he drew a complex seal on one piece, a seal that looked like it was not only moving, but somehow existing in more dimensions than actually existed. Then he raised the seal to the paper tag holding the gates closed. The seal writhed, then almost exploded outwards, forming a complex pattern of moving lines, rings and orbiting runes with two golden orbs floating near the middle. Interesting. Gamamaru mused, leaning forwards to examine one of the orbs. And it gives me an idea, but you will have to become a sage before you can use it, Naruto. Like Jiraiya. Gamamaru nodded as he picked up the writing brush again. Once more, it danced across parchment, leaving a trail of ink that occasionally rose off the page or seemed to sink below it without actually emerging from the other side. Father was right. Kurama breathed in awe. You are the greatest at Fuinjutsu. I dabble. Gamamaru chuckled as he finished the seal which promptly glowed before expanding into light just like the first seal. Now, Naruto, your knowledge of Kage Bunshin is the thing that allows me to do this. Is this going to screw up my chakra control again? Naruto asked suspiciously, causing the aged toad to laugh. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hinata called out and 2 copies of her appeared, one on each side. Pausing for a moment, Hinata held out her hands for her clones to hold, then all 3 of them vanished in a pulse of golden light, reappearing on the training ground used by Team 8. Amazing! Kurenai breathed as the 2 clones dispelled, leaving Hinata to catch her breath. Well done. Thank you, Kurenai-sensei. Hinata panted as she recovered from the exertion. I don't think I'll be up to transporting other people for a while, though. It's quite draining. Although it is a viable strategic advantage, the tactical capabilities that your capabilities present are, unfortunately, rather limited compared to those of your fiancé. Shino offered, causing Kiba to give him a look. And that means it isn't very useful for most of the things we do. Hinata offered and Shino nodded in confirmation. Well, for now, we have a meeting to get to. Kurenai said after a long moment. Yeah, let's go. Kiba shouted as he bounded ahead, then he paused. Where are we going? By my father, it feels so good to be out again. Gamamaru smiled at the waist-high multi-tailed fox jumping around excitedly. It is good to have you around once more, little kid. Huh. Kurama paused in his gambling to stare quizzically at the Toad Elder, then his gaze snapped to Naruto, who was failing to hide a grin. I never did that, he declared, sitting down and wrapping his tails around his paws. You never saw me do that. I'm too dignified to jump around like a small kid. You can't prove anything. Gamamaru shook with suppressed laughter and Kurama sulked. Stop laughing. Naruto turned away in an attempt to hide the fact that he was almost about to fall over laughing. It was truly amazing what learning a new type of clone technique in an hour or 2 with an old toad could achieve. Orochimaru swept out of the ritual room, leaving the comatose form of Tachuya lying unattended in the middle of the floor, the area where her curse mark had once been now showing only inflamed but otherwise unmarked skin. Welcome back, sir. Kabuto smiled. I am glad that it worked. I'll need a new member for the Sound 4, but other than that, I think things went not quite as badly as they could have done. Orochimaru said as he donned the kimono that Kabuto had handed him. Going up against a dozen copies of my old teacher and his pet summon was certainly rather unexpected. If you add that brat's high ration to that, come. Kabuto followed his master down several long corridors, then they stopped at a large vault door. Orochimaru reached out and carefully tapped several portions of the seal engraved into its face, then stepped back as the vault door rolled to one side. My trophy chamber. Orochimaru explained as he led the way inside. Over there, the bow of Itsusuki Hamura, a bow which forms arrows of pure chakra, although the cost is quite high. Here is the hilt from Senjuto Birama's sword. Note the seal on the pommel, it let him summon it to his hand whenever he wanted. Although I cannot say for certain, I believe he used the same seal as the basis for the high ration, the technique that my teammate's student improved and became known for. And here we are, the ring. Kabuto stared at the displayed item. Inside a glass jar was a severed hand with a ring adorning the little finger, a ring which had the kanji for void inscribed on it. It has been a long time since I last used this. Orochimaru mused as he lifted the jar. But now that I am aware of the threat that the Yondaime's son poses, it is time to bring him to the attention of those more likely to be able to counter his abilities. Kabuto raised an eyebrow in query as Orochimaru removed the ring from the severed hand and put it on his own little finger. A moment later, Orochimaru seemed to be surrounded by tiny chakra distortions. Orochimaru looked around, his gaze taking in the dark cave and the stone pillars upon one of which his chakra projection stood. A moment later, another chakra silhouette appeared, its eyes bearing a series of concentric rings. The Rinnegan. Orochimaru. The new figure stated, displeasure infusing its voice. Lord Pain. Orochimaru replied with a slight smirk. I come bearing word of a grave threat to your plans. You will find it extremely difficult to capture the Cuba because the host has learned the high ration. Pain froze for a long moment. Are you certain of this? I witnessed it with my own eyes. Orochimaru replied. He was able to use the Hiraishin the same way that his father had. I had already known about him using it in conjunction with his clones, the Hokage Guard version, but now he can do it on his own. This is troubling. Pain slowly mused. Why have you come to me with this? He can duplicate others as well. Orochimaru continued, ignoring the question. He duplicated my old teacher. I found myself facing over a dozen Sarutobi Hiruzans at their full strength. Even by using Edo Tensei to bring back the first two Hokages and bind them to my will, I was overwhelmed. You have perfected the Edo Tensei? Pain asked almost eagerly, and Orochimaru nodded. Then perhaps between the information you have provided and the abilities you have, I may yet be persuaded to allow you to rejoin our ranks. Orochimaru smirked triumphantly. Chapter 46, a chunin and his team. Hinata paused in the doorway, staring incredulously at the sight before her. Naruto smirked in amusement as his fiancée rubbed her eyes, stared again and then activated her Byakugan in order to ensure that she wasn't caught up in a genjutsu. Naruto, she said after a long moment. Why is a giant fox playing shogi with Shikamaru? Because this damned ape keeps beating me and I am going to win if it's the last thing I do. Kurama snarled, reaching out to move a piece. Check. Shikamaru lazily moved one of his pieces and Kurama started growling what sounded almost like a stream of swear words. Naruto, the sage of six paths, used to play shogi and taught all of the Biju how to play as well. Naruto said as his clone placed a cup and an odd container of fruit squash on the table. Kurama picked up the container and used the spout-like side to take several gulps before putting it down and moving one of his own pieces. Shikamaru frowned, his hands moving so that the fingers formed a rectangle. Oh. Hinata said in a too calm voice. And, why is Shikamaru playing shogi with a giant fox? He's one of the best opponents I've met who isn't from my clan. Shikamaru said, reaching out to place a piece on the board. Remind me to take you to meet my father, I think he'll be interested in your playing style as well. Kurama smirked as he moved a piece, then snarled as Shikamaru instantly countered his tactic. They've been playing for over an hour. Naruto commented, placing a cup of fruit squash into Hinata's hand. Oh, Shikamaru told me about the problem with the rearrangement of teams, but he refused to give me any details as he said that you had an idea that you wanted to run past me. Hinata nodded, her eyes not leaving the now fast-moving shogi game. I don't know if you heard, but Sakura captured an Otonin. Chuchi-kin, the genjutsu expert who took out Lee with a single senbon. Naruto supplied. Kurenye-sensei and Yamanaka-sama used a special collaboration technique on her, with her permission, to permanently change her allegiance from Oto to Konoha. Hinata continued. Although they believe that it was successful, she will need to be placed under a Jonin sensei for observation in case anything went wrong. And that's where I come in. Kakashi stated from the doorway. Odd, I don't remember seeing a fox of that size before. He's complicated. Naruto sighed over Kurama's triumphant growl as Shikamaru redeployed to counter the unexpected flanking attack. I'll explain later. Anyway, Kakashi said, staring at the odd scene. We came up with an interesting concept, but it needs your okay for it to work. With 3 genin being promoted to chunin and 6 of the 9, excluding Team 10, now being part of incomplete teams since Sasuke has joined Umbu, we decided a switch around was a good idea. Team 10 is remaining as we are. Shikamaru supplied as Kurama's ears flattened in horror at the way his defenses had just been shattered by a single move. The idea was mine. Hinata said quietly and Kakashi nodded. Kurenai will be taking Chuchi-kin into her team, which will consist of Kin, Kiba and Tobio. Sakura is moving to Guy's team to replace Tenten where he will aid her in improving her physical abilities while her Irian in training will prove invaluable for helping Lee and Guy whenever they overtrain, which is quite often. Hinata asked for a special assignment, since she can now perform the Kagebunshin version of the Hiraishin. Naruto grinned as he caught Hinata in a big hug. As Kakashi caught the dropped cup without spilling a drop, Naruto spun Hinata round. You wanted to join me? I've been getting lessons in the Hokage Guard Hiraishin technique as well. Kakashi supplied. With me along, you can now do B-ranked missions, or even A-ranked with the proper preparation. If you'll accept me, of course. Naruto nodded slowly. It would be an honor to have the only surviving student of my father as leader. Checkmate. Damn it. How did a hairless ape like you, again? Sorry. Shikamaru sighed as he started putting the pieces away. I have a meeting to get to, but if you want to challenge my father to a game. Kurama spun to face Naruto. Can I have a chakra boost? If I'm going to try and beat the one who taught him how to play, I need to last long enough to get through the match. What? Kakashi asked again and Naruto replied as he placed his hand on Kurama's shoulder. It's a summoning-inspired variant of Kage Bunshin using Kurama's chakra, a technique created by the great Toad Sage himself. It also connects Kurama's consciousness to the clone for as long as it lasts, so he experiences everything in real time rather than just getting the memories later. As the conduit for the technique, I am aware, generally speaking, of what Kurama is experiencing and can cancel the technique if I feel I need to. Hang on. Kakashi gasped. You've cloned the Kyuubi. Okay, I'm full. Kurama announced, then he glanced at Shikamaru. Let's go. Troublesome. Shikamaru sighed as he followed Kurama out of the door. That was surreal. Kakashi finally stated. So, why exactly is Kurenai taking this kin into her team? Naruto asked after a long moment. Kurano was intrigued by Kin's use of audio genjutsu. Kakashi supplied, his visible eye still fixed on the point where the path vanished into the trees. Although it would be possible to effectively reverse engineer it just from her observations, having access to the source means that it'll take weeks rather than years to create an entirely new library of techniques. Naruto nodded in understanding, then he grinned. By the way, did my other idea pan out? All Jonin on a mission outside the city have been ordered to carry a tagged kunai so they can call for reinforcements if needed. Kakashi nodded. That's part of the reason that I learned the guard version of Sensei's technique. You provide the high accuracy heavy hitting, I provide the distraction and general mayhem with clones and Hinata tells us both where we need to be. Naruto grinned. That's disturbingly close to how I envisioned the roles. Kakashi admitted. You really did deserve that vest. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said and Kakashi blinked as his vision seemed to blur. So. Naruto said after a long moment, do we have any missions lined up? And am I still an independent chunin or am I now, is there such a thing as an elite chunin? The next mission will be tomorrow. Kakashi said. I don't know if you noticed, but Jiraiya left yesterday, taking a high-ration kunai with him. He said he'd probably use it the day after tomorrow to summon us to where he is in order to help him on his mission. What is his mission? Hinata asked curiously and Kakashi gave them a nice smile even as he handed Hinata her drink back. Why, we're going to be bringing back the last of the Chunin. Hey, old man. Naruto called out in greeting as he and Hinata sat down on adjacent stools. 2 bowls of ramen, 1 miso, and 1 beef. Oh, and 2 fruit squashes please. Hey, Naruto. Been a few days. Teiuchi chuckled from the kitchen. I was starting to think you'd found another ramen supplier or something. Never. Naruto gasped while Hinata smiled in amusement. Ichiraku's ramen is food worthy of the gods. And those ingredients you're bringing in really help. Ayame noted as she moved to place the 2 cups of diluted fruit juice on the counter in front of the pair. You can't really get fresher than almost straight from the sea. Hinata gave Naruto a questioning look and he chuckled self-consciously. You know the agreement I have with Kiba? He asked and Hinata nodded. I realized that it was a good way of earning money, so I made several deals with some merchants in Wave. I pop over there twice a week and bring back several large boxes of stuff to sell on. Naruto's good at finding unexpected ways to use his skills. Teiuchi noted as he stirred the steaming pot carefully. He's studying under several of us shopkeepers and when things get really busy, I can hire him to provide some clones to help with the food preparation and serving. Hinata nodded. I see. Naruto, that's very clever. Thanks, Hime. Naruto smiled. But since I have a house to run and lessons to pay for, I needed to find ways of getting more money so I could become better. Considering my starting point. Naruto trailed off with a shrug. Here we are. Ayame said, sliding the 2 bowls onto the counter and handing over 2 pairs of chopsticks. Enjoy. Itadakimasu. Ah, hello there. Kakashi smiled as Naruto and Hinata appeared in a flash of light. Am I mistaken, or have you managed to learn your father's version of hydration? I have. Naruto smiled, then his face fell. But my clones dispel when they do it, which means that I can't simply give Hinata the memories of how to do it like I did with the guard hydration. Add to that the fact that I'm still not certain exactly how I made the final step, and even if I did, I'm not sure how I'd describe it so others can use it. Well, at least I know how to perform the guard version. Kakashi shrugged. But the fact that you managed to make the final jump means that the technique isn't lost and can be taught, or at least learn. Kakashi stopped, his head tilted slightly. Did anyone else feel that? Jiraiya. Naruto nodded, holding out his hands. Hinata took his left hand with the unconscious ease of long familiarity while Kakashi moved to complete the circle. Okay. Naruto said. Let's take this slow, we need to harmonize for this. A flash of light heralded the arrival of the trio, and on one side of the clearing where he was lounging along a low-hanging branch, Jiraiya grunted. Took you long enough. What kept you? Naruto picked up the kunai from where it had been thrown into the ground and reversed his grip on it, holding it up for Jiraiya to take. My fault. Kakashi said with a slight shrug. Harmonizing my chakra took several attempts, it's not something I can use my Sharingan to help with. Speaking of, how's what's-his-name doing in Umbu? Jiraiya asked as he tucked the tri-blade kunai away. Sasuke. Kakashi asked. Pretty good, I think. He's getting regular therapy sessions with Inoichi though. Apparently something is off with his memory of what happened to his clan. Even I know that whatever happened was screwy. Jiraiya agreed as he rolled off the branch and landed on his feet. Sensei didn't order the massacre, he was actually hoping to train Itachi up as the Godaime. The massacre happened barely 2 days before he planned to spring the apprenticeship on Itachi. He was furious with Danzo and the 2 fossils, but with the loss of virtually the entire Uchiha clan, he couldn't afford to show any sign of disunity where the other villages could see. If he had. The 4th Great Shinobi War. Naruto half-whispered. Damn. Did you wonder why Danzo is rarely seen in public? Jiraiya asked as he started to walk out of the clearing. Sensei told him back then that he didn't want to see him for at least 3 years. He only re-emerged from whatever hole he had crawled into after your graduation. Good thing you did, by the way. If you'd remained a civilian, there was a petition gaining ground to have you exiled with the threat of the major trading clans withdrawing from Konoha if you weren't. That would have crippled Konoha's economy. Then, why didn't they do that? Naruto asked curiously. Civilians aren't allowed to interfere with shinobi matters. Kakashi supplied as they made their way through the woods. The reverse isn't true, though, for obvious reasons. Apparently someone was behind the petition. Jiraiya added. A shinobi, but I've been unable to find out who. I'm still searching, but the trail seemed to lead to the land of rice paddies and Orochimaru. Camus only know what they wanted with you. Father or burden, most likely. Naruto mused as they exited the forest and paused at the top of a hill overlooking a small city. Where are we? Tanzuka quarters. Jiraiya smirked. And somewhere in there is Tsunade. So, how will we find her? Hinata asked. Chapter 47, a chunin and 2 Tsunin. This place is totally different from Konoha. Naruto stated as the quartet of shinobi wended their way through the crowds. I've barely seen any shinobi and only one was roof hopping. Tanzuka quarters is renowned for its artists and authors. Jiraiya commented as he paused for a long moment to look round for a moment. You know, I was thinking about getting a small house here, maybe with a couple of scantily clad maids to you know what? Let's just find Tsunade, shall we? Naruto gave Jiraiya a confused look, then his gaze slid to where Hinata was looking far more innocent than he had ever seen her looking before. What did you? No, I probably don't want to know. Hinata somehow managed to look even more innocent at Naruto's abortive question. So, how do we find Tsunade? Well, she's a blonde woman with big, and a blue diamond tattoo on her forehead. Jiraiya said. She travels with her assistant Shizuna and their pet pig, Tauntaun. Then that's probably them in the inn 3 streets that way. Hinata said, her Byakugan active, and Jiraiya whistled. Okay, that is a very handy skill to have. Please, lead the way and we'll be right behind you. Hinata caught Naruto's hand and pulled him forwards to lead the group with her, causing Kakashi to chuckle slightly. There he is. Interesting. I recognize the old man with him, and the girl has to be the Hyuga, but who is the other one? Hatake Kakashi, former sensei of Team 7 before it was dissolved. Interesting. Let us rejoin our partners and plan our attack. Hey, Tsunade! Jiraiya shouted as he barged into the inn. Good to see you again. Jiraiya! The blonde woman growled as she lowered her sake dish. What are you doing here? Is that how you treat your only remaining teammate? Jiraiya mock-mourned, earning a shocked glance. Yep, sensei killed Orochimaru a week ago. Nothing left but some spatters which he burned. The Chunin are down to 2. Tsunade stared at him, unmoving, and Jiraiya waved his hand in front of her face. Is something wrong with her? Naruto asked, and the dark-haired woman sat next to Tsunade stirred. It's just, how? I helped. Naruto said, earning a disbelieving look. I did. It's how I earned this vest. Naruto-kun used a special Hihatsu to duplicate Hokage-sama, allowing them to deal with the snake Chunin. Hinata supplied softly. The technique created a dozen Sandaimers at full power. The hell? Tsunade finally asked, seeming to drop out of her shocked state. What sort of Hihatsu can do that? The closest I can think of is the Kagebunshin, and that requires the user to split off a portion of their chakra for each clone. It's related to the Kagebunshin, but you need huge chakra reserves to use it, hey? Tsunade grabbed his wrist and frowned as green medical chakra briefly flickered around her hand, then she released him. That's a lot of chakra, she said, sounding shaken. More than even you, Jiraiya. Yeah, I know. Jiraiya agreed. I've read his file and talked to the toads about how they helped to boost him further. Plus, there's his heritage. Tsunade raised a quizzical eyebrow and Jiraiya face-palmed. Damn it, I haven't introduced them to you, have I? Senju Tsunade, Shizuna. Tauntaun. Allow me to introduce the student of my student, Jonin Hatake Kakashi, Chunin Uzumaki Naruto, and Genin Hyuga Hinata. A sage, a Jonin, a Chunin, and a Genin. Tsunade scoffed. All you need now is a Kage and you'll have all the ranks represented. You forgot a special Jonin and a student. Naruto said, earning a long glare from the female Chunin that stopped as soon as Tsunade noticed that Hinata was glaring at her. What? Tsunade asked as Jiraiya sniggered. Sorry. Sorry. Jiraiya gasped as he brought himself back under control. Hinata is very possessive, protective about Naruto. Not surprising, really. They've found a way of swapping thoughts that isn't a Yamanaka technique. Tsunade stared at Jiraiya and he gave a small shrug, then pulled out a small scroll. Rolling it across the table, he motioned for Tsunade to open it. Senju Tsunade. Jiraiya said formally as Tsunade stared at the scroll as if it had turned into a rabid chipmunk that was threatening to attack her. By order of the Sandaime Hokage, your self-imposed exile is ended. You are required to return to Konoha within a week, or you will be declared to be a Nukenin and lose Konoha's protection. Of course, if that happens, I'd be happy to give you my protection. Half a second later, the wall exploded outwards as the Toad Sage was sent flying by a backhanded punch delivered by an enraged blonde Irionin. Fuck. Onaki growled, and by the door, Akasuka looked at him in worry. Sir. You remember that group with a name similar to yours that I've been hiring for the more deniable operations? Onaki asked almost rhetorically. Well, my son-in-law's recovered enough to give a full debriefing about everything he could find out about them. Their leader has what can only be the Rinnegan. What? Akachuchi gasped in shock. Is he certain? It gets worse. Onaki growled. Confirmed members of the Akatsuki group include Uchiha Itachi, Hoshigaki Kisame, Sasori, and my former pupil Deidara. Deidara. If I'd known, I'd never have hired them. Pervy Sage, you feeling better yet? Naruto asked as Hinata held a green glowing hand over one of Jiraiya's wounds, moving her hand slightly in response to Shizune's directions. He deserved it. Tsunade sulked from her chair in the corner of the hotel room. Yep. Jiraiya agreed cheerfully. Sure did. But it worked, you're sober now. Nothing like a good fight to burn off the alcohol, ow. Sorry. Hinata apologized as Shizune moved to take a closer look. It's okay, just a bone fragment moving back into position. She declared after running her own analysis jutsu on Jiraiya's torso. Relax, Jiraiya-san. You'll be back to almost full strength very soon. Good. Jiraiya smiled, then he frowned. Anyone pick up the scroll or is it still in the inn? I've got it. Naruto said, holding up the rolled-up document. Fine. Give me the demmed scroll. Tsunade grumped and Naruto held it out. Tsunade grabbed it from his hand, unrolled it and frowned. The hell? What? Jiraiya asked curiously. I don't understand this. Tsunade complained as she unrolled the short scroll, then turned it round to check the back in case anything had been written there. What does I need to talk to her personally? Come and get me mean. Naruto blinked, then he grinned and vanished in a flash of light. Tsunade stared at the empty space, then Naruto and two clones flashed into existence, surrounding a very familiar robed figure. Sensei. Tsunade gasped as Hiruzen stepped forwards, holding his arms out. Tsunade's eyes filled with tears and she almost threw herself into the Hokage's arms, letting him hug her as she burst into tears. How's Pervy Sage? Naruto whispered. I've done all I can, why? I think we should leave them alone for a while. Naruto replied, glancing at Kakashi, Shizune, and Jiraiya, who both nodded in agreement. Come on. The group left the Hokage and his crying student behind as they silently slipped out of the room and made their way downstairs to the small bar. As Jiraiya ordered a round of drinks, the other four moved to claim one of the few tables available. So. Naruto started, then he sagged. I have no idea how to start this conversation. Kakashi? Hinata. So, how's the princess been over the last few years? Jiraiya asked as he sat down, sliding beakers of watered fruit juice to Hinata and Naruto, then pouring out small saucers of sake for himself, Kakashi and Shizune. Shizune shrugged as she took the proffered saucer. Doing some healing to raise funds, keeping just ahead of the debt collectors, but I'm sure that your spies have been reporting virtually everything we've done to you. True. Jiraiya confirmed with no trace of embarrassment. So, back to Konoha. Shizune asked with a wistful smile. It's been years since I was last there. Why does Hiruzen-sama want Tsunade back? Is he getting sick? He looked okay. Sensei wants to retire. Jiraiya said and Shizune stared at him in shock. I'm too busy trying to keep Konoha safe from outside threats, even if my sources did drop the kunai regarding the finals. Of the other candidates, Kakashi has the skills, but not the drive. Asuma hates politicking due to his time in the daimyo's court as one of the 12 guardian shinobi, might guy. Jiraiya and Kakashi both shuddered. Danzo is too much of a warhawk to be considered and he hid away during the finals, although we can't prove anything, we think he knew it was going to happen. Jiraiya continued. Hyuga Hayashi is a possibility due to his experience as a clan head, but since you can't be Hokage and clan head, he'd need to find a replacement and there aren't that many potential leaders in that clan. Hinata stared in shock at Jiraiya. Tosan is one of the Go-Daime candidates. Jiraiya nodded. The last candidate is one very few suspected, Umino Iruka. No way. Naruto gasped. Iruka-sensei. He's one of the best teachers at the academy. Jiraiya noted. He's also ex-Umbu and when he was younger, he helped with several missions vital to the security of Konoha, missions he's never talked about. He knows how Konoha works and where quite a few political bodies are buried. On the downside, he hates being in a position where he has to choose who to sacrifice for the mission, which is why he became a teacher. The more I hear about Iruka-sensei, the more badass he becomes. Naruto marveled and Hinata nodded in agreement. I think that sensei will convince Tsunade to take the hat. Jiraiya said between sips of his sake. I don't think I could call Iruka old man if he took the hat. Naruto mused, causing Hinata to giggle and Kakashi to smile. By the way, just how are you drinking that through your mask? Naruto asked Kakashi curiously. It's an Umbu trick. Kakashi evaded. I did teach it to Sasuke, though. How's he settling in? Naruto asked and Kakashi cocked an eyebrow at him. He's still going through the integration protocols. Kakashi stated. It'll be another couple of weeks at least before he goes back into the field, then there's finding a partner for him since Umbu always deploy in pairs, or multiples thereof. He did seem rather quiet during the meal. Had he been told about the possibility of him joining Umbu? Hinata asked, earning a respectful nod. He had. Kakashi confirmed. He was considering the pros and cons. He was listening, though. Okay. Naruto replied. So what do we do now? So, Lord Pain, what do we do now? Orochimaru asked as he twitched his newly bestowed black with red clouds cloak into a more comfortable position. Beside him, a teenager stood, his right eye a red cherry non, something that was earning the occasional glare from Itachi, who was standing beside the hulking form of Kisame. Before the four shinobi stood 6 men, all of whom boasted facial piercings and eyes with the characteristic ripple pattern of the Rinnegan. We shall move in at dusk. The foremost man decided. Itachi, you and Kisame will enter through the back, keep a low profile and be ready to block them should they try to retreat. Orochimaru, you and Shin enter through the front. Get their attention and pull them onto the street, since they believe you deceased, it should not be difficult. I shall be waiting. The 4 shinobi vanished, leaving the 6 paths of pain standing on the rooftop, looking in different directions. Soon. The emaciated man in the crab-like life support chair croaked in a clearing several miles from where the 6 who had the same eyes as him stood. Soon we shall start to collect the Biju, and we will bring peace to the world. As you say. The woman standing just behind him agreed, her expression calm, but with an undertone of long-suppressed sorrow. As you say. Chapter 48, A Chunin Endangered. They've certainly been talking for a while. Naruto said as he accepted another card. Hime and Sensei have a lot of catching up to do. Jiraiya shrugged as he gazed at his own hand. Call. Full house, 9s and 3s. 3 of a kind, 7s. Hinata sighed as she put her cards down. Do I get a bonus for having a totally random hand? Kakashi half-joked as he put down his cards, none of which were anything resembling useful. 2 pairs, 5s, and 8s. Shizune said, showing her hand. 2 pairs as well. Aces. Naruto said, putting down 2 of the cards, and aces. Jiraiya groaned. How? You haven't lost a single hand. I know you aren't cheating, I've been watching, so, how? At least we're not playing for money. Shizune pointed out. Naruto shrugged, hiding a smile. Maybe we should order some food. Kakashi suggested, glancing at the window. It looks like it's about to get dark, some rooms as well, or are we going back to Konoha? Interesting thought. Jiraiya mused, glancing at Naruto. That skill of yours really changes things. I think I should hire the rooms, though. Tsunade may not want to head back at once, and if the rest of us go back without her, she may change her mind and try to sneak away. Shizune gave Jiraiya a look and he shrugged helplessly. What? She's been running for over a decade. Sensei's good at persuading people to see things his way, but people don't change their habits that quickly without some sort of physical reason. Jiraiya turned to Kakashi for support, only to blink at the sight of the empty chair where Kakashi had been sitting. A quick glance round showed the Cyclopean shinobi to be at the bar, handing a small roll of money over to the grinning barkeep. Huh. Kid pulled a ninja vanish on me. Jiraiya said, his voice a curious mix of pride, awe, and embarrassment. Haven't had that happen for a long time. I must be getting old. How old are you? Naruto asked before he could stop himself, and Jiraiya chuckled. Old enough to be a legend, kid. He's 50. A new voice said, and Jiraiya pouted at Tsunade as she walked across to join them at the table while Hiruzen moved to join Kakashi at the bar. You know we were in the same class, right Hime? Jiraiya pointed out and Tsunade shrugged as Kakashi and Hiruzen rejoined them. As much as I'd love to stay, the amount of demmed paperwork still on my desk means that I need to get back. Hiruzen said. Naruto, if you would. 3 clones popped into existence behind Naruto as Hiruzen patted Tsunade on her shoulder. I'll see you again soon, Tsunade-chan. Okay, sensei. Tsunade agreed with a smile. Just look after yourself until I get back. You've strained yourself enough already. But I'll soon have the best medicnin in the elemental nations helping me. Hiruzen countered as the trio of clones took position around him. See you soon, my student. Soon, sensei. Tsunade whispered as Hiruzen vanished in a flash of light. So, who's for sake? Kakashi asked, breaking the mood and earning a glare from Tsunade. Sounds good to me. A voice said from the door and Naruto, Kakashi, Tsunade, and Jiraiya all stared in shock at the cloaked man who had just entered the room and lifted the woven hat enough to expose his face. Orochimaru. Jiraiya choked. But sensei killed you. It was rather painful. Orochimaru agreed with a smirk as he stepped forwards to allow a second cloaked figure to enter. But I had a few backup plans in place, after all, you should both know how well I plan. When you can actually be bothered to put your mind to it. Jiraiya riposted even as Naruto used the distraction to look round. The back door was already occupied by 2 more figures in the black cloaks with red clouds that Orochimaru was wearing. We're surrounded. Naruto whispered and Kakashi gave a tiny nod. We're outnumbered. Hinata added, her Byakugan active. There are 6 more of them lining the roof, their chakra is, they share the same chakra, what are they? What do you see? Naruto asked as he shifted position slightly, allowing his Haori to dangle freely, thus giving him easy access to his shuriken. Their chakra, it's radiating out from bits of metal in their bodies and it also leads away, north. I think that's enough. Orochimaru stated, his smile vanishing. Lord Pain will be annoyed at you, although I do thank you for the information. I wasn't aware until now that he was using a technique like Sasori's. A cough from the back interrupted his ruminations and Orochimaru nodded. I quite agree, Itachi, it's time to get things moving. Lord Pain only wants the Jinchuriki, so Naruto, if you surrender, you have my word that we'll let the others leave unhurt. How about it, you wouldn't want your fiancé to get injured, or even killed, would you? Hinata's eyebrows lowered into a frown. You aren't taking my snuggly away. Orochimaru looked somewhat taken aback by the sheer determination infusing Hinata's voice, but Naruto smirked. I think that I'll be able to escape, Hinata. No, you won't. Jiraiya stated, pointing to Orochimaru's companion, who had produced a syringe filled with an odd-colored liquid. They'll keep you unconscious until it's time to do whatever they want to do. Something's wrong. Naruto stated, his voice filled with sudden worry. I can't get a lock on the tags, something's blocking me. One of the ones on the roof is doing it. Hinata ground out. I can see the effect it's having. Then we have our primary target. Jiraiya stated. Which one is it? Currently the middle one. Hinata supplied and Jiraiya grinned, pulling out a large roll of Ryo and throwing it behind the bar. That should cover the damage. He said. Tsunade, skylight, please. Orochimaru's eyes widened in shocked recognition and he opened his mouth to shout a warning, but Tsunade was already in motion, grabbing the table and hurling it straight up through the ceiling, Jiraiya leaping up after it so quickly that he was almost within touching range, leaving behind a shout of, Kukios no Jutsu. Even as Itachi and his companion pushed their way in through the back door, Naruto grabbed Kakashi's hand. An instant later, the room was filled with clones of both Naruto and Kakashi, the latter of whom blinked in shock before, in unison, raising their hitaites to expose their 3 Tomoshari nons. Why am I suddenly having flashbacks? Orochimaru grumbled as he dived out of the way of a trio of attacks, then another blast of smoke marked the appearance of a dozen more clones, this time clones of Naruto and Hinata. Heh, this is fun. Itachi's companion laughed as he pulled out a huge, bandage-wrapped sword and used it to flatten and dispel a couple of the Naruto clones. Orochimaru's companion flung open his cloak and shed his hat to reveal that he had several more Sharingan embedded in his skull and one on each arm. That is just wrong. One of Naruto's clones stated before a fist wreathed in electricity dispelled it. You should see the arm of my secret ally. Orochimaru grinned before a snake emerged from his mouth and extruded a sword that fell into his hand. You know, I can't use my skills to their fullest extent since I need to take you alive, but they never mentioned how many limbs you were supposed to have. Jiraiya landed on the rooftop even as two clouds of smoke marked the successful summoning of his chosen allies. Both of us, Jiraiya-kun? Fukazaku asked. Habit. One of these can absorb chakra. Jiraiya stated as the red markings under his eyes began to expand. Let's see how it does with Sage Cha. Yahiko. Yahiko is dead, there is only pain. The figure thus addressed responded. Wait. Hinata said the bodies were being controlled, and those eyes. Nagato. Hello. Sensei. Nagato. Jiraiya repeated, this time in shock. I heard that Hanzo had killed you all. I was on my way back with reinforcements when I got the message, is Konan still alive? She is. Nagato, it isn't too late. Jiraiya pleaded. You don't have to do this. No, I do. Nagato stated through Yahiko's body. Farewell, sensei. Shinra Tensei. The hell? The blue-skinned man gasped as his strike was blocked by a pair of crossed kunai held by Tsunade. An instant later, she stamped as hard on the floor as she could, causing a plank to sharply rise. Arg. Kisame. Itachi shouted as he disengaged from the quartet of Kakashis he was fighting and moved to counter Tsunade's follow-up strike. What happened? Ow. Kisame whimpered as he lay on the floor, curled up in a tight ball of pain. That really fucking hurts. Shit. Orochimaru's companion yelped as he barely avoided a trio of strikes delivered by three Hinatas who were working together in perfect harmony. Boss. Little busy here, Shin. Orochimaru called back as he frantically dodged a quartet of Rasengans before diving to avoid a Chidori. These clones are quite aggravating. I know. Shin yelled back as he rolled to avoid a shuriken barrage, only to come face to face with another Kakashi. Shit. I thought that you'd slacked off. Orochimaru growled as he countered another Kakashi clone. You're almost back up to how you'd been at your peak. How? I took a long look at myself. Kakashi replied as he dodged Orochimaru's blade. Naruto inspired me. Why, Nagato? Jiraiya yelled as he delivered an axe kick at the figure that had shed its cloak to reveal 6 arms with odd metallic lines on them. Why are you doing this? What do you hope to achieve? I am no longer Nagato. 3 of the paths chorused in one voice. I am pain and only through pain can peace be finally achieved. If you will not stand with me, then you are my enemy. Jiraiya ducked underneath a blast of energy that issued from the mechanized path's hand, then did a backwards somersault kick that seemed to miss, but nevertheless sent the augmented enemy flying, crashing into the same hole that had been made by the path that Jiraiya had substituted with after he had been sent flying by Pain's first attack. Nagato, you have no idea how much this hurts me. He grumbled as he delivered another senjutsu-enhanced strike that sent the animated corpse of his former student flying. Now, which of you was the one blocking Naruto? It's that one. A clone of Hinata shouted as she was launched out of the gap in the roof an instant before a chakra beam from the multi-armed path forcibly dispelled her. Thanks. Jiraiya shouted down the hole, then he ducked a missile barrage. Pa, I need as much sage chakra as you can. Do you know what you're doing? Shima asked worriedly and Jiraiya nodded. Trust me. Arg. Shin stumbled backwards, clutching at the stump of his left arm. Hinata backed away, throwing the severed limb into the corner of the room, then ducked the backswing of Orochimaru's blade, a backswing that was in turn blocked by one of the 5 remaining Kakashi. These two haven't trained together. One of the other Kakashis noted. Not like those two. Less talking, more fighting. Tsunade snapped as she jerked Shizune out of the way of a kunai thrust from Itachi, then dived to one side as a wind-enhanced kunai hurtled back at the Akatsuki member, missing him by a fraction of an inch. They're dispelling my clones too fast. Naruto shouted as he wrapped wind chakra around a second kunai. We can't hold, we're going to need a miracle. Ask and you shall receive. Jiraiya shouted from above and a statue looking like a humanoid frog crashed into the floor. Yes. Naruto shouted in glee. All non-Naruto clones, attack. Originals to me. Tsunade and Shizune disengaged from their battle against Itachi, allowing a trio of Hinata clones to take their place. Orochimaru tried to press his attack, only to be sent flying as Jiraiya plummeted through the ceiling and delivered a snap kick, using the recoil to land next to Naruto. Here. Jiraiya shouted and one of the clones grabbed him. Pervy Sage ready. Medic ready. Apprentice ready. Cyclops ready. Naruto caught Hinata in a hug. Hime ready. Jump. The two remaining paths still upright on the roof stared at the hole where multiple flashes of light had briefly illuminated the shattered wreckage within. What happened? They got away. Itachi stated as he blurred into visibility next to one of the paths. It would seem that Naruto has managed to learn his father's version of the Hiraishin rather than simply the guard variant. Gonna kill that bitch. Kisame grumbled from below as he finally managed to stand up, using his sword as a crutch while his other hand remained cupped around the abused portion of his anatomy. For a long moment, the shinobi simply stared at each other, then Itachi's form wavered before he collapsed, as did Kisame's. The bodies that hit the ground, however, weren't the ones that had started to fall. Even through that technique, it hurt. Kisame grumbled as he stood up over a dozen miles away and started to stretch. At least I'm still intact. Had it really been me there, I'd be singing soprano permanently. Itachi simply nodded and pulled out a packet of Pocky. That Shin dude, though, those eyes he had are freaky. Kisame continued, not noticing how Itachi had briefly frozen mid-motion, his normally neutral face creasing slightly into a frown. I wonder what his story is. That's it for part 6. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.